Hello, I'm Joel Meeker, and you're listening to Verse by Verse. Last year, my wife and I visited the site of ancient Carthage in Tunis, the capital of what is now Tunisia in North Africa. Carthage was the arch-rival of Rome during the Punic Wars of the 200s and 100s BC. This visit was fascinating, but there was a very sad moment as well. One of the ancient sites through which we walked was labeled the Tophet, a term taken from the Bible. Tophet was a place where children were sacrificed and burned in order to ask the intervention of the god Baal. The practice started in Phoenicia and what is now Lebanon, just to the north of Israel, but it spread to Phoenician colonies as well, like Carthage. We walked through the Tophet of Carthage. There we saw hundreds of tiny stone coffins containing the remains of small children who had been murdered and burned as offerings to Baal. There still stands the remains of the furnace in which their little bodies were burned. It was horrible to contemplate. Surprisingly, the ancient Israelites were tempted by this satanic practice, the practice of their neighbors to the north. The Bible includes references to Israelites burning their children in honor of Baal. It's one in a list of practices that God told his people he hated. Today our passage is Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 10 to 12. These verses say, "There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or daughter pass through the fire." That's what happened in Carthage. "Or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. For all who do these things are an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God drives them out from before you." God had explained how the Israelites could communicate with him. He gave them his laws, his feasts, his ceremonies. There were prophets of God among them to relay his instructions. But the Canaanites had other ways of trying to communicate with the supernatural. That was tempting to some Israelites. And other Bible passages show that some succumbed to those temptations. Some sought out witches or sorcerers or soothsayers. All the list of forbidden activities we just read, including the ultimate evil of murdering their own precious children to impress a pagan, non-existent God. Throughout history, there have always been some people who wanted to dabble in the occult, consulting witches, spiritists, those who claim to communicate with the dead. We should note, in passing, that the Bible explains that the dead are unconscious. They know nothing. So those who claim to communicate with the dead are really not able to do that. God says that all these things are abominations. He hates all of that. Of course, there is a spirit world, and some of those spirits are deadly evil. It's foolish, dangerous, and destructive to try to contact them. We should not be tempted by the enticements of the occult. The results of that are tragic. As Jesus himself said in Matthew chapter 4, verse 10, "You shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve."
Verse by Verse is a companion podcast to the Daily Bible Verse blog, which you can find on the Life, Hope, and Truth Learning Center. Check out the show notes for more.